This is your Chargers linebacker, Deion Henley, and you're tuning in with Chargers Unleashed.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Wolkenstein here with you from the LAFB Network. If this is your first time tuning in the show, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Dan Wolkenstein, happy Saturday, and good morning to everyone for getting up early Saturday morning, Easter weekend. Dan, I'm assuming that you have a hot, steaming cup of caffeine in front of you. There it is. There it is.
Look at that. Crema.
A latte like only Wolkenstein can make.
A latte unlike any other.
Yes. But more importantly, Dan, we are 5 days out from the 2025 NFL draft. And that is why we were here this morning. We have a lot to cover, whether it's today or the next 5 days. Obviously, we're going to get into a lot of the comments from Joe Hortiz and Chad Alexander from their pre-draft press conference earlier this week. And we'll be giving some of our own draft takes. And of course, as always, live shows on Chargers Unleashed are run by you, the viewers. So please put your comments into the chat and we will do our best to answer all of them over the next hour. But again, good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Dan, are you ready to get into this?
Yeah. And honestly, when Jorge in the comments, I thought you were going to say going somewhere else when you said hot steaming. I absolutely thought you did too. My hot steaming pile of cow dung. What's that from?
That
come on
is Liar Liar.
There we go.
Yes.
There we go.
Appreciate you testing my movie knowledge at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday.
Well, you saw my caffeine. What's your setup this morning? Which chicken?
I don't have any for the show. I had my caffeine at 5:30 this morning, and it's getting me through the day.
5:30. Good
yes.
Lord. Okay. Folks in the chat, what are we drinking? What do we got? Other than hot steaming cow dung.
Chargers Unleashed.
Yes. Stephen Rutledge.
Think of us.
Stephen Rutledge. Listen to the boys on my way to beautiful damp golf. Enjoy the golf. Hit them straight. Don't slice too many. Keep some for the next round. And have a few brews for me. Fireball is in your future? Possibly. Don't let Jake have any when he gets to the 13th hole. Don't do that.
13th hole? That was like the third hole.
We are live. Love these live shows, Jake. This might be a possible mock draft at the end. Maybe. Maybe.
That's news to me.
Maybe. But, Jake, we had a lot of comments from assistant GM Chad Alexander, Chargers GM Joe Hortiz. And what I wanted to kind of start with on those was the overall sentiment from Joe about Chad, hearing about the offseason that Chad had, interviewing for GM positions elsewhere. And Joe pretty much said it. He's not going to be the assistant GM next year. Chad Alexander is one of the best assistant GMs, if not the best assistant GM. And kind of the same thing that we think about with Jesse Minter. Enjoy him while we have him, but it won't be for long. Jake, what were kind of your key takeaways from the presser?
There was a chance that was looking like that Chad Alexander was going to get a GM job this offseason. I mean, it really came that close. So he was coveted. He's highly respected as far as front offices goes for a lot of different organizations and how he's built up his career thus far. So Joe's absolutely right. But I'm excited for the fact that he came back. I'm excited to see what Joe Hortiz / Chad Alexander / Jim Harbaugh 2.0 is going to bring us here in 5 days. So enjoy it. I'm happy that we've got him for 2025. Let's see what they could do.
So, big storylines from the presser. And I think, this is Lion season. You're not really going to get much from any GM at this point in terms of the NFL draft, except if you're the Raiders, they're talking about Ashton Genty. But there's a couple things, right? Like, I think it was kind of interesting hearing Joe Hortiz kind of clap back at Daniel Popper about the offensive line. saying that they're pretty good. 11 wins, sure, but it sounds to me like these are portraying as if they're good with their offensive line. Now, is that a smokescreen? I don't know. Is it improved from last year? Sure. Is it done?
No.
So I guess maybe my first question to you about the presser was, fast forwarding to the draft, are the starting 5 currently on this roster for the offensive line?
I'll respectfully say they shouldn't be.
Fair.
I'll respectfully say that they shouldn't be. If we're buying into anything that we've seen from Joe Hortiz, and you're talking about a Jim Harbaugh-led team, I don't see that there's any way that they finish days 1, 2, or 3 without addressing that offensive line again. And you can't.
See,
There's no way that you can't do that, considering that you're possibly thinking about Zion Johnson at a different position and trying him out at center if he can't work out at left guard. You brought Bradley Bozeman back, who we have come to figure out probably is best as a depth rotational player at best. And you brought Andre James in on a 1-year deal. Now, Kai Becton coming in, that's a whole nother story. That'll give you some stability on the right side of that line. There's no way that you can safely say, from the standpoint of what your offensive line gave up specifically in that playoff game against Houston,
sure,
that the work is done. Now, Joe Hortiz may have arrogantly kind of come out and said, hey, this is where we finished last year. I thought we did a pretty good job. As a team, yes. As a whole,
sure.
That's not all on the offensive line, though.
It's not because of the offensive line,
no.
for sure. But this is where I think sometimes doing mock drafts are important. So you say if they don't go days 1 or 2 without an offensive line, that they're doing themselves a disservice. Is that right?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's a disservice, because there's positions that Joe Hortiz had talked about that obviously he felt were very deep in this class. A lot of positions that we have talked about on this show, whether it's tight end, defensive line, you can throw edge in there as well, running back, obviously, that could be valued at a higher pick due to assistant. Yes. So I don't think that day 1, day 2, given what you've built it up for depth purposes, is a disservice. Again, we've said this many times, that the way that the Chargers approached free agency and executed it, they've essentially put themselves in a position where they can go BPA any single round. But I think if you go the entirety of the draft without addressing the offensive line some form or fashion, then you have done a disservice.
So maybe I misunderstood you. I thought you were saying if they don't go day 1 or day 2, which I just don't think that they do go offensive line day 1 or day 2. And that's not because they don't prioritize the offensive line. I don't think that they need to if you're looking to beef up your interior offensive line. Like, I think you can get starters, or at least those competing for starting positions, early day 3. And I kind of think that's what happens. I think that this team, there's a Tate Ratledge out there that might be a late day 3 component, maybe, as a guard. But the thing that I have to keep, it's funny, I say that, but I keep reminding myself, okay, who is this Chargers team? And they have told us who they are so often. Now, the difference is, this offseason, they have talked far less about offensive linemen are weapons, tip of the spear, build. Like, it's been a lot less of that than we had a year ago. And so this Chargers team is all about, like, they're going to tell you who they are, believe them. I'm not. The interesting part is, like, this offseason, what have they told us that we are either believing or discrediting in terms of, like, what to project the NFL draft, other than best player available?
I think that that's the message, Dan. And whether it's based on the work that they did last year, or if we've paid attention to their free agency moves that they've done, because Hortiz addressed this as far as the BPA goes, that they've set themselves up nicely, essentially, in every round. I think that's the tell. And I think that's the position that Joe Hortiz wanted to be in this time around. So if there is any tell, I think that that's it. And it has to give you a lot of intrigue going into this draft, where last year he even addressed this, in terms of fielding trading calls. Having the 5th pick is a lot different than having number 22. Yeah. And it is a lot different, all things considered, from the standpoint of the roster construction. Because in a single year, if you take 2024 as it was as a whole for the Chargers, pretty damn good from both a free agency standpoint and a draft standpoint for what you're able to find and build this team up to a playoff team. Now, you fast forward that, and now you're in a position where it's not just between 2 positions that everybody's talking about for the first pick. It's not just between this conversation of a wide receiver or an offensive lineman. It literally could be 4 different positions at 22, depending on how the board falls to you. And it could stay that way throughout the duration of the draft. And you have some deep positions. Yes, and you have some very deep positions that you can execute well on this. So I think if there's any tell that Joe Hortiz is trying to give any semblance to anyone as far as what their strategy is going to be, it is the BPA, which is a great thing for the Chargers because historically they have drafted more for need and obviously had some reaches in that circumstance because they haven't been able to play this way. And now Joe Hortiz, to his credit, has set this team up very nicely.
This episode of Chargers Unleashed is brought to you by Breville Barista Impress. No, Jorge asks, what kind of machine are you using? There's the plug.
He is so excited to tell you about this.
Yes, that's it. That's all. If you have any other questions, DM me. I absolutely love my espresso machine.
He's not lying.
No. Jay Richard, Jake. Chargers have 10 picks in the 2025 draft. What are the chances of those extra picks are used to trade up? What round can you see those picks being used to move up? I will start.
Go ahead.
I think the chances are very high. I don't think this Chargers team is going to find 10 starters or depth players that are going to remain on the 53-man roster in this draft. I don't think that's a hot take. 10's a lot. So I can see them doing something similar to last year, to be honest. I don't think that this draft, and we talked about this for a long time, trade up doesn't seem likely in round 1 because there's only so many round 1 grades, in my opinion, and it's far less than 22. Round 2, round 3, that's probably the sweet spot, in my opinion, to get into or to stay into or get more picks in. So could I see them getting rid of some of those 6th-round picks or pick swaps to go from late 4 to late 3? Sure. From late 3 to early 3 to late 2 to early 2. Yes. I think if I was a betting man, I think they will have an extra top 100 pick by the time day 2 ends. Because if I'm Joe Hortiz, and you heard like Daniel Jeremiah, you've heard a bunch of people talk about this. Like, this is a starters draft. You're not going to get superstars, although there are some at the top. You can get starters. I think this Chargers team is looking to build depth, and I don't think they're going to get 10. So, yeah, if it was me, why not? I'm not going to make 10 selections. That just doesn't seem like you're going to pan out. What about you?
Yeah, I normally don't talk about trading up that often. I'm normally the advocate for trading down.
But you also don't have opportunity to trade up because of you never have picks like this.
That's the kicker, because you don't have a quarterback class the way that it was last year, unfortunately, and the way that everything is stacked ranked. If the Steelers were behind the Chargers, it may be a different story. And I don't foresee anybody trading back up into the first round and the Chargers trading out of the first round for someone coming up to get a quarterback at that point in time. So they're just kind of in that middle of the pack area to where I just don't see any trading back happens. Day 2 could be a different story, but not day 1. So to answer this question, yeah, I feel the same way that Dan does, that a trade up is a possibility. For me, I would actually, if I'm trying to pick the comp pick formula together in my head, I'm going to say late day 2 is when a trade ends up happening. So target that third round as a possibility for them to make a move.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. I would say day 2 is the sweet spot where you should see action if you're going to see it. Maybe early day 3 if the Chargers team thinks they can get something there. Luke Walsh, Niners fan, chiming in. I think the talent at pick 22 will be similar to what we see at pick 11. Amen. And so I do find it kind of interesting, Jake, and I think you probably appreciate this. Last year, right? If that field goal went in Arizona, Chargers could very well be looking at Marvin Harrison Jr., which, by the way, sidebar, all the people talking about like, oh, Marvin Harrison Jr., it's a miss. Malik Neighbors is a surefire number 1. Like, okay, let's chill. Like, Marvin Harrison's got plenty of time. But the point is, last year we were at 5. And now you're like, oh, 22. Like, oh, we have a much worse pick, right? Like, every draft is different. This draft, to Luke's point, the difference between 11 and 22 isn't much.
Not for the positions that the Chargers are coveting in this draft, not for the positions that they need to build on in this draft, whether it's tight end, interior defensive line, edge, running back. You could throw corner in that conversation. Yeah, they're sitting pretty right now.
The only thing I will say is if they were picking at 11, they're getting one of the tight ends.
Yes.
If they're picking at 11, they're definitely able to get one of the top 2 running backs.
Sure.
But other than that, I don't think much changes the BPA formula for them. I don't. Bolts for life. Hortiz found 4 starters with a possible 5th in Junior Colson. If he can find, which is insane to me to even think about that.
It's wild.
5 in 1 year. If he can find 3 this year, we're looking good going forward. And I think he will.
Yeah,
I think he will. Jorge, I think they'll go heavy in the trenches. Unfortunately, I think this means they sacrifice drafting skill position early. They're going to have to miss out on a wide receiver, running back, or a tight end. What do you make of missing out on running back? Is that where you're going?
I think, yeah, let's put that missing out in quotation marks. Because if you're talking about missing out on a wide receiver running back in, say, the first round, hell, even push it to 55.
Yep.
All 3 of those classes specifically for what the Chargers need, you have a good chance at getting someone who's going to come in and contribute. With the running back class, it's been talked about ad nauseum as far as how deep it is and how many running backs could potentially fit to complement Najee Harris and this overall scheme that they want to run in general. Talking about wide receivers, you're really only looking at the X position because Mike Williams is coming back only on a 1-year deal. We know what Quentin Johnson is. He's not an X receiver. He's going to be working in the middle of space or middle of the field in order to get himself into open space. That's where he thrives best. Ladd McConkey obviously owns the slot. So you're going to need someone to supplant Mike Williams beyond this year. And if we're talking third round, you can find yourself a decent X receiver there. And then as far as the tight end goes, you really go through it and you evaluate it. This tight end class is a lot deeper than what you think after Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren. It really is. And I understand, and I'm no different as it relates to, I would love to see a guy like Colston Loveland on this team and bring Justin Herbert that tight end presence that he has not had since Hunter Henry. But at the same time, I wouldn't necessarily call it missing out because if you look beyond the first 2 rounds, as far as those position goes, how they're stacked and what the Chargers need specifically, I think you can still find plenty of players to supplant that from rounds 3 and down.
Daryl. Morning, guys. Off to work today and catching you guys live. Welcome, Daryl. Shout out to the live folks. A favor, please talk about Jack Sawyer. Any chance at him in the second round?
For Jack Sawyer, it depends on how you're looking at him as a pass rushing presence, I guess, is the way to look at it. Measurables, obviously, questions as far as him as a competitor in terms of him against the run. That's well documented for what he's able to do. if you're looking for him to be that next pass rusher, I just don't know about that. And when you're in a situation where you're looking for the heir apparent who's going to be positioned across from Thule when Khalil Mack is not there, I'm not 100% certain that Jack Sawyer would be that guy. Now, if we want to highlight the edge class in general, guy, when we had Dane Brugler on the show earlier this week, he had 17 edge players in his top 100 alone. I mean, it's filthy when you go down and you actually see how much talent is in this edge class. And specifically, if we're just talking about guys who are going to come in and be speed rushers, there's a plethora of them. Now, I'm not discounting Jack Sawyer. I really like Jack Sawyer. I think he's actually pretty tailored for what this defense needs. But if you're looking for someone who's going to come in with a good pass rushing presence to be that guy across from Thule in the future, I'm not so sure about it. And maybe time will tell. And I could totally be sitting here a year from now eating crow if indeed Jack Sawyer ends up being selected by the Chargers. As far as competitors welcome, he fits that bill. That's damn sure. As far as being a leader, he fits that bill. No question about it. But is that the type of skill set that you're looking for the Chargers in that circumstance? I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Question came in here for a trade. William asks, what if there are 5 teams with 2 second-round picks? Would you trade the first round for 2 second rounds? This is your trade down. So for 22, getting rid of that, getting out of 32, so 33 plus, but you get 2 of them.
That's enticing. But I don't think that they would actually go for it. Because the context of what's missing here is, where are those second round picks located? Pardon me. If they're too far down in the second round, I don't think that they would do something like that. If you're saying
Jake's dying. No, well, that's what I was kind of thinking too. I'll let you survive here, Jake. But I was kind of thinking it depends.
Yeah, that's what 5:30 in the morning caffeine gets me.
If you're dropping down to like 38, like
I was going to say, if you were talking about a scenario that, Cleveland wants to come back up in the first round for a quarterback, something that's close to the beginning of the second round, or the Giants, they go Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, number 3, and they want to come back up to get their next quarterback, you may get me there. But I don't think anything further than that they would be interested in going back that far, given most likely how the board is going to fall to them at 22.
Yeah. And so this is the eye chart for folks watching. So we'll do our best to kind of help parse this out. But this is the Jimmy Johnson formula for kind of trading draft selection and points for each selection to kind of give you a rough estimate of what that would give you. So we're talking 22, right? That gives you a point value of 780 right now. So if we're looking to stack 2 second round picks, that would need to be, again, this has to go both ways. So let's just say we're doing pick 35. That's 550. That means the next one's going to be 300. So you're going to have to do 550 and roughly pick 60. Roughly. Would you do it? So 22 gone. You get 35. And again, I don't know who the
you still have your own second round pick in that circumstance. So you essentially get 3. I would be enticed by that if it was for anything that was in that 36 to 33 range. I would do it. Honestly, I would be enticed by that.
Yeah, I think I would too. Everyone, again, there's people in chat talking about like, oh, you got to trade down. Like, I'm with you normally, but the Chargers never have 10 picks. Like, that is so not the norm. So I just don't, I don't see it.
Even when they have 2 third-round picks, historically, they have found a way to screw that up.
Yeah. Jorge, early morning Jake is a force to be reckoned with. Man's giving brutally honest takes with no FUX.
It's probably just the fact that I haven't slept very much in the last few days. So I'm probably hitting the fuck it button very early this morning.
The fuck's it button.
Yes.
Brady, hey, Jake and Dan and chat. What's up, dude? How are you? Let's see. Danger close 6-1. I'm still upset about Hortiz turning down the Vikings offer last year. Could have had Fuaga and Brian Thomas. I mean, you can be upset, but Ladd and Joe Alt ain't bad. I don't care what that trade was. Like, yeah, you could argue the Brian Thomas versus Blink or Brian Thomas versus Ladd thing. You can't argue Fuaga and Joe Alt. Like, you can't. But again, they got 4, possibly 5 starters out of that draft. So, I don't know. But I get it. Devon Abram talking tight ends. I don't think Conklin moves needle at tight end. So this is kind of where I think some of the smoke screen from that press conference is happening, right? Like getting Conklin makes it less of a desperation at the position. Sure. Yes. But are you excited going into the year with Tyler Conklin as your tight end 1?
No.
And that's kind of where when I kind of think through, like, all right, what did the Chargers need to do? That's the lens I put. Like, at blank position, if they were to not pick somebody right now, am I excited about that position? The starter. That's where I go. So, like, tackles, you're good, right? Like, I think running back, as much as I would love to see a new one, I think you need a complimentary one for a Najee Harris. I don't necessarily think you need to have a starter one unless you're thinking long-term, right? Receiver, fucks yes. I want to see a receiver. Tight end, same thing. So, apologize. I think I cut you off, but I think he moves the needle. I think he moves the floor, but I think there's still a lot of ceiling to be had.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the misconception to say, like, oh, why are they going out and getting Tyler Conklin? It's not eliminating at all the possibility of the Chargers taking a tight end in this draft. None whatsoever. So I agree with the question. I don't think that Conklin moves the needle. I think it assists for what you had pre-free agency, given the fact that Stone Smart walked and your 2 tight ends on your roster at that point in time were Will Dissly and Tucker Fisk. You needed some type of receiving threat. And bringing a guy like Conklin in on a 1-year deal at that price, I thought was great.
Yeah.
Honestly, I thought it was a smart move. But no doubt about it, the Chargers have neglected drafting the tight end position for too many years. I do not foresee them doing it again this year.
Devon Abram, not getting one of the top 4 tight ends would be a disappointment. And so I don't think we have to do this, but just to confirm, top 4 would be Arroyo, Taylor.
Well, depending on how you want to stack rank them.
I mean, in no particular order, right? Arroyo, Taylor, Loveland, Warren. I think, unless someone has Ferguson.
If that's the majority of people's 1, 2, 3, 4 in no discernible order, that makes sense.
But again, like when we did our tight end rankings, I was happily surprised and impressed with how many of the guys below those 4 that if you're just looking for a pass catching tight end that can, get you some explosives, that can be a little bit of an athlete, like there's more than that. So, like, I love Ferguson, man. Like, out of Oregon, give me some of that. A Rondé Gadsden later, give me some of that. I mean, we're talking like Luke Lachey, who isn't even in our top 10. Like, I think there's some promise there that he's just getting overlooked because there's a bunch of dudes. Harold Fannin doesn't look the same, but, like, gets the job done.
Mitchell Evans, Dan.
Mitchell Evans, it's like
where the conversation was about Mitchell Evans a year ago. And now he's being looked at as maybe like the 7th or the 8th stacked ranked tight end in this class. You talk about a lunch pail tight end that could still give you some receiving chops. I love what I see from Mitchell Evans.
Totally a Jim Harbaugh guy. When I think Jim Harbaugh, I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a Mitchell Evans pick for sure. Mighty says, pound for pound, do you think we have the biggest team in the league besides position? But our team is huge.
Linebacker, or is this
pound for pound?
Okay.
Not yet. At certain position groups,
not quite yet. The running back stable has still not been built out yet, and you can't consider that with Najee only coming in on the deal that he came on. The offensive line still needs work, in my opinion. You still need to build more depth and the future of your investment in your defensive line behind the guys that you only have on 3 or 4 of them are only on 1-year deals if you throw in Tito in that mix. And edge, you need to build up. What is the succession plan beyond Khalil Mack after this year? You have to build that up. So they're good at certain positions. I'd say it's funny. Traditionally, we wouldn't be saying this, but safety seems like one of your strongest positions that you've got with who's on the roster right now, and that looks good. But there's still a lot of building out to do.
Danger Close 619. What's your honest opinion about a Keenan return? Do you think he's coming?
If he comes back to the Chargers, it will not be until after the draft. And again, at this point in time, I'll give it a 10% chance right now, and that's before the draft. And if they were to go the entire class of draft without selecting a wide receiver, which I think is highly unlikely, then I think in that circumstance, then you can raise those chances up for Keenan Allen coming back considerably. But I just don't think that they go all 3 days without addressing the wide receiver position.
Yeah, I don't either. I think that's like a plan F, E, F, G in the wide receiver plans after the draft, like if it were to happen. You think we're doing a trade up like how we did with McConkey? Asks Mr. 3i.
Yeah, I don't foresee the trade up happening in round 1, but day 2, I think you could see something like that. 100%.
Let's see. Hanan Derry. What about Ferguson's drop issues? Also, Hortiz said I asked Joe Alt about players he played with. Mitchell Evans incoming.
The drop issues are always something that can be fixed. Is it 100% fixable? No. We've seen that from players historically in the past, and I understand that it always raises some eyebrows whenever you're evaluating players to question their hands. I think it just in terms of scheme fit, athleticism, how you can use a player like Ferguson, that fits a lot in a Greg Roman offense, and definitely a Jim Harbaugh-like player for sure.
I'm looking at the comp formula, or excuse me, the NFL draft chart, and Seattle is a team that I could look at drafting or trading, excuse me. They've got 2 seconds and 2 thirds currently.
Seattle's got a lot of work to do after their offseason, don't they?
I mean, yes, but they have 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fifths, and 2 sevenths. So, like, that's a team that you can look at possibly trading back in the 2nd or 3rd round because they have 2 of them in each. Interesting. Let's see. Danger Close says QJ still can't catch.
Go back to that last one, Dan. We need to ask that question.
Oh. Dark Samus, $1.99 donation. Thank you. Would Harbaugh really pass on Loveland or Grant?
No way.
But
no way.
Okay, but this is the problem. If they're both there, who are you going? This is the question. Like, that's the bigger question.
That's the tough question. God.
That's the hard one.
I'm now going through all of the individual quotes that Jim Harbaugh has said about either Colson Loveland or Kenneth Grant. And it's extremely tough. Jim Harbaugh has called Kenneth Grant at one point in time a gift from the gods for how freakish he is. And you're kind of in a weird position where you need to build up that future at both positions. If it was me today, and if we're taking the comments that Joe Hortiz and Jim Harbaugh said after their playoff exit, I think that they would go Colson Loveland in this circumstance.
I think they would too. I think. That's so hard.
It's tough. I mean, it'd be a great position for the Chargers to be in if it fell that way, but that's where I would go if it was me.
Okay. Jake, I'm going to put you on the spot. You're not going to like this. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Great.
But first, hold on. Action Dan, $20 donation. Action Dan. Bro, thank you. If last year taught us anything, is that Hortiz is not afraid to go to the trenches in round 1. I fully expect an interior defensive line at 22, and again in day 3.
Doubling up.
Scatta Bolt in day 2. Okay. $100 super chat if the Bolts don't take interior defensive line in round 1. Everyone. But honestly, Jake, like if I was a betting man, you and I talked about this offline, I think a week ago. Like I would bet the same thing. Like I genuinely believe, even if those guys are on the board, like it's gonna be a tough decision. But given who I think will be on the board, I think this is going to be an interior defensive line. I really
Hortiz actually talked about this in his press conference because he's had history being at number 22 when he was with the Baltimore Ravens. They've traded back from that spot. They took, say, Flowers at that spot when he was there. And his makeshift quote here, but this is essentially what he was saying, is that he has a pretty good understanding of who's going to be on the board at that point in time. So if he's expecting 2 tight ends to go off the board before 22, if he's expecting 2 running backs to go off the board at 22, if he's expecting Tedero McMillan to be gone before 22, before pick 22, then yeah, it seems likely if you were to talk about a guy like a Kenneth Grant to be gone by that, or to still be there at that point in time. I would love it. A Derek Harmon situation, I personally think he's going to go higher than 22, but if he's there, that'll give you some juice that the Chargers currently don't have on their roster when it comes to a pass rush perspective. But yeah, interior defensive line, Dan, we've been talking about this for way too long, is that it's either tight end or interior defensive line that feels like that would be the selection.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. All right, Jake, back to what I was saying earlier. I'll push on the spot. Okay.
Ready for the hypercritical.
Yep. Nope. We're gonna do a quick 4-round mock. We're not gonna take
4 rounds. Okay.
We're not gonna take viewer listener feedback right now. We're gonna have a full show dedicated to just that later. But I want to kind of get not only your thoughts, but also kind of just set the stage for, I think, why this discussion is important. About, okay, well, they got to go blank in round 1, 2, 3, or else they're screwed, right? In this scenario, okay, Steelers took Shedeur Sanders ahead of us. Matthew Golden, Buka, Kenneth Grant's off the board, Tyler Warren's gone, Will Johnson's gone, McMillan's gone, Genty's gone. Like all the guys that you hear about, right? Like they're gone. The names that are not gone. Omarion Hampton, Colson Loveland, Gray Zabel still there. Trey Amos is still there. That's probably the Walter Nolan still there.
Yeah, if
the kid from Oregon still there. Like, so in this scenario, you've got interior defensive line, tight end, running back. Or your swing Gray Zabel.
Run up that Colson Loveland card and don't look back.
All right. Colson Loveland. Now, round 2. Let's see. Guys like Jack Sawyer, unfortunately, gone. Donovan Jackson's gone. Maxwell Harrison's gone. Good tight end. So is Trey Amos. TJ Sanders is gone. Caleb Johnson's gone. Derek Harmon left. Io Manor left. Jack Besh left. Darius Alexander, who I actually really like at 55. But who is left, right? We went tight end, defensive line, Omar Norman Lott, pure pass rusher. You can go corner, Benjamin Morrison, Cam Scatterbo sitting right there. Dylan Sampson's there. We don't need tight end anymore, so don't worry about Elijah Arroyo. Travion Henderson is there, who I don't think he's going to be there, honestly. But
I don't either.
You got Jalen Royals, a lot of people are high on. Tate Ratledge, if you want to go in the trenches, is there. Where would you go?
So this is essentially you're making a 4-round mock for me. Is what you're making. Great way to skirt it, Dan, and get yourself out of trouble.
I told you I'd put you on the spot. I literally said I'd put you on the spot.
The Almore Norman lot pick is extremely enticing. When Dan and I went through our interior defensive line rankings, you talk about a guy who made chicken salad out of chicken shit because of how little he was on the field, not because of injury, just because of snaps, because of how stacked that team was defensively. And for the amount of snaps that he was on the field and what he was able to produce is crazy. And yeah, if you're looking for a guy who's going to give you pass rushing juice, kind of in the same type of form as a Derek Harmon, that's Almore Norman lot, and that's an element that the Chargers defensive line as it stands right now don't have. So that stands out to me considerably. Go back to the overall board, Dan. Morrison being there is not terrible, and we know that at some point in time, Hortiz is going to draft a cornerback. Jalen Royals, who I'm extremely high on. Darian Porter is also a nice get in that circumstance.
But again, let's make sure we're putting our Jake hat on from the lens of Hortiz and Harbaugh.
Yeah. Again, I'm with Dan here. I don't feel like the board is going to fall this way. But if for some reason, if you were to tell me that you got Colston Loveland at 22 and for some reason Travion Henderson is still there at 55, yeah, I would do that. Immediately your offense feels a hell of a lot better in terms of the compliments that are around Justin Herbert.
All right, so this is where it gets interesting. So send the card in, which, by the way, I'm fully on board with this. Sounds fantastic. Round 3. Guys who are left. So you can get what position groups looking at. So receiver, again, putting the hat on for the Chargers.
Interior defensive line, edge, wide receiver make a ton of sense here.
Interior defensive line, you said. Okay. Tamari Caldwell
being there. Tyrod being there.
Your boy, Aeneas
Josh,
Peebles is there.
2 of my guys there, Joshua Farmer and Aeneas Peebles, but I think that you could probably get them a little bit later.
Let's see. Offensive line, you said?
No. Well, you can throw that up there as an option as well. Yeah. Hey, Ratledge. First of all, okay. Now we're talking absurdity.
That's not saying.
Now we're talking absolute absurdity. With these two, with Ratledge and Wilson being there, I don't foresee either one of those guys making it out of round 2. Honestly, I
mean, those line up to what the Chargers would do.
Show me the wider. Okay, so it's Royals. Yeah. Royals, Kyle Williams, no.
I think this is who you're targeting later.
That's probably who I'm targeting. That's who I'm looking at. It would either be Royals or Horton, honestly, if we were talking about what the Chargers need specifically. You could throw Kyle Williams in there as far as an X option, but go to the edge. Yeah. And show me one last thing as far as the defensive line goes. Okay. Again, I'm not going to select the center position because I'm trying to be as realistic as possible, and I just don't see the board falling that way.
Folks in the chat are saying you got to go edge.
Yeah, and that's where I'm going. It's Femi.
Okay.
Right there, Dan.
Oh, here?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. All right. Round 4. So you have gone Colston Loveland, Travion Henderson, and then edge. You went Femi. This is where it gets interesting.
I like who I see there on the overall.
So the guy you're targeting is not there.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy, there's no way he's going to be here in round 4. Absolutely not. So I wouldn't even let you pick him, to be honest.
Okay, so in this circumstance, Kyle Williams is off the board to you?
Correct.
Okay.
In round 4? Come on now.
So then show me the defensive line again.
you want a fun watch, go watch Tonka Hemingway.
Yeah. So people prioritize interior defensive line a lot in this particular mock draft.
Yeah, surprisingly. There's
Go back to offensive line then.
Seth McLaughlin, Uli Lampkin. I mean, this could be your new center.
One last time, go to the defensive line again. I think I know where I'm going. God, it's between Ty Robinson and Seth McLaughlin, honestly. And if it was me, I'd probably go Ty Robinson here.
All right. So by the way, the grades that they give you on these are kind of dumb, in my opinion, because like there's like, oh, Trayvon Henderson, you should have gone Omar Norman Lott. Like, it is a steal to get Henderson at 55.
Again, I don't foresee Henderson being there at 55.
No, I don't either. But so looking at this, right? Like, this is where I think this discussion happens. You get your tight end, which everyone's been clamoring for, right? You get your edge that is hopefully, in theory, part of the package to replace and improve the depth without a day that has Khalil Mack in it. But at the same time, like this incredibly deep, historically deep interior defensive line class, you're left with Ty Robinson. And you still haven't gotten a receiver. Not that that's a bad thing, but like that's the drawback, right? So folks in the chat, everyone kind of thinking about this, like this is where this matters. Like, yeah, you know, it's because like everybody has like, oh, they have all these picks and it matters to, you know, got to prioritize X, Y, Z positions. Sure. But there's only so many guys. It only has so many picks. So like in this scenario, yeah, Hanan Derry's like, yeah, Keenan's coming back.
There it is. There it is. I literally talked myself right into not selecting a wide receiver in the first 4 rounds. So everybody can dissect me for that one, given how the board fell.
Yeah. But like, so this is kind of where the discussion is. Like, if you had to sacrifice, quote unquote, like a position that you would like to see get sooner rather than later, which would it be? Are you sacrificing the wide receiver position? Meaning, are you getting one on day 3? Are you sacrificing the interior defensive line? Meaning day 3.
Are you sacrificing the running back in arguably the deepest running back class we've seen?
That's kind of where I would go. So what positions are okay to sacrifice? Because we're not even factoring in corner here. There's no interior offensive line here. There's a lot of positions. And we talked to Dane Brugler, by the way. If you have not had a chance, go check out back-to-back episodes. Trevor Sikkema, Dane Brugler. Well done, Jake, by the way. You know what they say. When Jake hits the phones, good things happen. You see, like, the depth at certain positions. Don't be surprised if they go corner early. If they do, which one of those you get rid of that we just did?
Cool.
So I think this is where I think sometimes Chargers fans don't look at the zoomed out version. It's hard to draft well, and it's hard to fill in holes with instant starters. Something's got to give. So what's it going to be? So again, quick one, but the goal of that one, light Jake's hair on fire. Second was to get people to start thinking about like, all right, well, fast forward to after day 2, like which one are we okay with sacrificing?
Yeah, let's see what we cook up on Wednesday when we do our actual mock draft before the draft.
Yes, for sure. All right, we got about 5 minutes left here, so we can take some rapid fire Q&A for the rest of this. Hanan Dairy. And that's why trading 22 for 2 seconds is such a great trade. Yeah, sure. I'm with you. You got to have somebody that's going to trade up with you, though.
That's the kicker.
And who? I don't know. Why would you trade, like, for example, from 29 to 22? Who's the guy that you trade up for? Maybe a Walter Nolan? Maybe? I don't know. Jake, before we get to the questions here, any last topics or thoughts from you from the presser?
There was a couple comments that Hortiz had made about the 30 visits and more so from the standpoint of, I think he clarified that well, because if anybody's been paying attention to the Chargers 30 visits as of late, they brought in a lot of linebackers, and you could say right now that that's not one of their top needs that they have going into this draft, given how free agency's panned out. And, you're hoping for a bounce back from Junior Colson. And obviously what Deion Henley did last year was spectacular. But they brought in a lot of, yes, correct. They brought in a lot of linebackers. And how Joe Hortiz had said it was mainly just to get a better idea or to learn more about certain guys. Not necessarily that it's an indicator to say, oh, we brought in these 5 linebackers as part of our 30 visit. We're definitely interested in taking one of them. It's never just a 1-to-1 ratio on that. It's never that way. So some teams do it that way, where it's a clear indicator. If you go back and you look at Baltimore or Hortiz, or even what the Chargers did last year in a microcosm with Joe Hortiz as the GM, it's not always like that. So I like what he's technically utilizing his 30 visits for. It's more to get a better picture. I think they already have a good idea of what their board looks like, and it's been that way for a while.
Yeah, and he said, excuse me, he said that if they had a draft tomorrow or today, that they could. So I think they're ready. The other part that I thought was interesting was him talking about the running back position and like pairing with a Najee Harris,
which he kind of just gave like the most generic answer as far as saying.
Yeah, he gave all the answers
in his own words. Any running back that is in this draft could pair well with Najee Harris, and that's the truth. It really is.
Well, but I think to his point, I think the more pointed argument there is like everyone's saying, oh, you need to have a running back that complements Najee Harris, meaning like, he's a thunder, you need a lightning, you need a speed back, whatever. And to his point, he said like, yeah, you might not need it. Like you might not need a Najee type, but you might. Like, let's say fluke things happen and Najee goes down. Like then you need a Najee type.
I've said this a few times on the show. If you would have a good idea as far as the offense goes, I think that would actually dictate what running back is selected and what you're going to see from the Chargers this coming season. So if you were to end up, say, with an Omarion Hampton and a Najee Harris, it's like, okay, there's a lot you can do with that. Yeah. If you were to end up with a Najee Harris and a Damian Martinez, you're going to look to kick the living shit out of everybody on a 4-yard by possession drive.
Yep.
And they have no problem taking that 80 yards to the house if it means 4 yards at a time by either one of those guys. And that's going to be their mentality of how they're going to go. But
get Jaden Blue
back to the big picture of everything. There's so many that you can get in this class that can help complement this offense as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. Jay Richer says rank position priority for days 1 and 2. Like this is almost impossible. This is so hard to do. But
I think your first round is, we should already have a good idea as far as how that's ranked as far as priorities. To me,
I think 1 and 2 can be flipped, but
yes. It could be flipped, but you could say either tight end or interior defensive line. Agreed. Without question. You get to day 2, it's a combination of
one of those left over.
Running back, wide receiver, or tight end. Or corner in that circumstance. That's where I would say.
Yeah, part of me goes interior defensive line, tight end, round 1 and 2, pick which one, right? Whatever. And then round 3 is kind of a wild card. Like it could be a corner if one falls because the drop off is quick. Could be an edge, drop off is quick. Receiver if some guy falls, like if a Trey Harris falls, or Who knows? That's the wild card for me. Let's see. I think Minter, says Jorge, will do miracles with whatever player he has, but Roman really needs playmakers. So honestly, I think we go heavy on offense on the draft. Tay Jackson, will Herbert throw more than 27 touchdown passes?
I don't know, but at the end of the day, if the record is you're going to the playoffs again, I don't think it matters.
Yeah, I also
if you're taking this roster the way it's built as of this moment, this is pre-draft. Really, the only other weapons that's been added to this roster is Mike Williams, Conklin, Najee Harris. That doesn't scream that many touchdowns to me, given the skill set and how Greg Roman is going to run it.
Becton, you have offensive line help, but yeah.
Now, you asked me the same question next Sunday. I think it's going to be highly improved.
You're saying skill position specifically?
Skill position specifically, yes.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm with you. Again, it's Lion season, right? Like, we're not going to learn much from these press conferences other than kind of like overall philosophy. But when you're going into this, it's a BPA year for the Chargers team. That's all they were trying to set themselves up to be able to do going into this draft. And I think they did that. Are they done? No. Are there positions that absolutely can be improved and are not exciting going into the draft? Yes. But I think the floor has been raised enough at almost every position. I think they're sitting sweet to go BPA. Last one, Jake. If Loveland is there, $2 donation by Hanan Dairy. If Loveland isn't there, then 22 and 55, it's defensive line and edge.
I don't disagree with that. Then I think that you could build a solid base to your defensive front again. That's you investing in it, especially in the interior, which just hasn't been done from a draft standpoint well in so many years. So here's the best thing about this draft, and more so how the roster has been constructed as opposed to how it's been constructed under the previous regimes. Dan and I have talked about this way too many times, and unfortunately, it's been more in a negative perception because the team for so many years was built top heavy. There was no depth behind it. So that if one guy goes down, the drop-off is huge to where it's not going to be able to pick that position up in order for it to contribute.
Yep.
In the last season and a half, for what Joe Hortiz has done to completely rebuild not just the roster, but in terms of the philosophy in how they build moving forward, your depth looks so much better. And no, it may not be as top-heavy or star-studded as it used to be at certain positions, but now you're in this spot to where questions like this, if the tight end's not there, this is what you could do. If the defensive lineman's not there, this is what you could do. So many years, Dan and I have been on this show and talking about pigeonholing ourselves into certain positions to say, if they don't come away with a XYZ position by first round, second round, third round, whatever it is, they're going to be in trouble. You're not in this position anymore. The Chargers are in a BPA position every single round of the draft to where it offers them so much more flexibility and what they could do. And the one thing we haven't seen is what their big board looks like. So yes, how you would prioritize anything, us, is extremely different than what their big board looks like. But it's still built around the same concept. That whatever idea you essentially have on terms of how you want to build this roster, I do not disagree with, because it could completely happen.
I'm with you. As we close out, for folks who have not seen it, we have a giveaway on X right now. I have it up on the screen, but go to the pinned tweet on Chargers Unleashed profile, LAC_Unleashed. All I got to do to qualify for a 2025 NFL draft selection of your choice for this Chargers team. All I got to do, follow, retweet, and subscribe on YouTube. Put a screenshot of your subscription, and you're entered to win a jersey of your choice of someone that the Chargers draft in 2025. Jake, it's been fun. I think there's a lot of avenues that this team can go. but I think the most important part is what would Jim do? What would Joe do? And in Jim and Joe, we trust. 1 year in so far, they did pretty damn good. Excited to see year 2 happen in just 5 days, which is wild. That's so crazy. I'm excited. Go get some caffeine. I need some more. You've been up for already 5 hours at some point. No, we're not going to have a live show draft edition, but
we have a different type of idea of how we're going to do this. So it may not necessarily be a live draft show.
It's gonna be something,
but there is gonna be something. I am trying to get creative for it, so it may not be Dan and I sitting here watching the board of how it's going to go. There's a certain thing happening, just so happens to coincide with the draft this year, and that's kind of the biggest reason why we're not having a live draft show. Are we still watching the draft? Absolutely. Is there something still that may be live that's not in a setting like this? Yes. So stay tuned. But Dan and I have a lot to cover in the next 5 days. We meant to do a wide receiver top 10 list earlier this week. Unfortunately, that's been late in coming out, and hopefully that'll drop here within the next day or two. We want to do at least one more for a certain position before the draft comes around next Thursday. And obviously we have our last mock draft that we're going to do, and time's running out. So Dan and I need to get to work as it relates to that. So 5 days and counting, a lot to get into, lots to talk about. Excited for April 24th to finally get here.
For Jake, I'm Dan. This is Chargers Unleashed. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It's been fun. Appreciate all of the interactions on the chat. You guys are the best, as always. If you've not done so already, please hit that like, subscribe on YouTube. Helps out a ton. But until next time, we will talk to you on the next Chargers Unleashed. See you later, everybody.